My name is John Dennehy. I'm a historian, or the historian here at the Braintree Historical Society in Braintree, Massachusetts. I'm seated right now in the birthplace of Sylvanus Thayer, located directly across the street from the Braintree Town Hall. We love this building. It's a gem. It's where Sylvanus Thayer was born in 1785. Sylvanus Thayer, there was a question asked many years ago, who is the most important American you've probably never heard of? And the name that kept coming up more than others was Sylvanus Thayer. So most Americans don't know who he was and what he was known for. But his story did start here, and he was incredibly important in the development of the United States. After being born here in 1785, the fifth of 7 children, tight quarters here in the house. At the age of 14, he was sent to live in New Hampshire with his mother's brother, Mr. Faxon, in Washington, New Hampshire. Interestingly enough, the next door neighbor was a General Benjamin Pierce, who had fought in the Revolutionary War. He took a liking to young Sylvanus. He saw in this young boy something special, a very studious child, a very intelligent child. After a few years, at the age of 16, Sylvanus started teaching to raise some extra money to go to college. In 1804, he attended Dartmouth College, and he graduated in 1807, studied a number of subjects, including calculus and trigonometry and natural philosophy, and did incredibly well. In fact, he was voted valedictorian in 1807. He never gave his valedictory address because at that time he had been appointed to a position at West Point. General Pierce had taken steps and reached out to West Point, and he attended West Point just before the graduation took place. He only attended West Point for 1 year. Graduated as a commissioned officer, and almost immediately he began the study of the coastal defenses along the east coast of the United States, particularly in New England. This was a subject that very few Americans had studied. Sylvanus Thayer did. He quickly understood the importance of mathematics, of science, of engineering, civil engineering. You remember that this is the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. America did not have many civil engineers, or engineers at all at that time. So he appreciated or understood the importance of engineering. When the War of 1812 came, he was chief engineer for the northern part of the Army, the American Army. And he was put in charge of the coastal defenses at Norfolk, Virginia, an incredibly important strategic location during the war. He was considered one of the best officers in the United States Army. He came to the attention of many important people. One of them was Secretary of War, James Monroe. Monroe was a close friend of President Madison. For a brief time, Monroe served as Secretary of War. As a result of that, he came into contact with a number of officers. Sylvanus Thayer was one of them. In 1815, a decision was made that the United States needed to acquire learning materials, books, maps, charts, other learning materials to help educate Americans on not just military strategy, but also engineering and mathematics. And they decided to send 2 individuals, Colonel McCree and now Major Sylvanus Thayer, who was just 30 years old. This is 1815. The 2 officers went to Europe, spent a lot of time in Paris, in London, and other cities in Europe, acquiring and learning and attending lectures to bring back materials back to the United States. I believe they were given $5,000 to make their purchases, and they made some great selections. They purchased over 1,000 books, charts, and maps, and brought them back to West Point. And they served as the critical library at West Point. In fact, the Thayer collection, which is what they began to refer to it as, is still there. Those original books that he purchased back in 1815 is a permanent part of the West Point collection, but they were very much needed. When he returned to the United States, his reputation had increased. And this is where the story of West Point begins. In 1817, West Point was not doing quite well. The Secretary of War after Monroe, Secretary Eustis, came in, and he was not a fan of West Point. As a result, he didn't provide the necessary funds. He removed a lot of the cadets and put them into the military ranks during the War of 1812, to the point where they had very few cadets at West Point. The person who was put in charge, the acting superintendent, his name was Captain Alden Partridge. Interesting individual, not a very good administrator. He played favorites among the cadets who were there, did not require any strict academic requirements, allowed cadets to leave the post when they wanted to. They called them vacations. They could come and go as they pleased. And he also had a very difficult working relationship with the faculty because he played favorites. He used to walk or strut, the term that was used by several people at the time, very colorful uniforms and feathers. Many people began to refer to him derisively as the peacock. So letters began to arrive at the Capitol saying that West Point is falling short. It's chaos. As a result, James Monroe paid a personal visit to West Point, and when he arrived, he saw that it was in much worse shape than he had been told. The faculty members that had written to him told him only half the story. He came back to the Capitol and realized that a change had to be made. In 1817, he was now President of the United States. He had served as Secretary of State after being Secretary of War, and in 1817, he assumed the presidency, having just been elected the previous fall. And he remembered this young officer from Massachusetts, Sylvanus Thayer. He said, I want him. Let him take over for Partridge. So Sylvanus Thayer went up to West Point, provided his orders to Partridge, who was not very pleased. And almost immediately, Thayer began to instill discipline, academic standards, an honor code, which did not go well with many of the cadets who were there. It's funny, when he first arrived, most of the cadets weren't on the post. They were on vacation. The first thing he did was recall them. From now on, if they left post without orders, they were considered AWOL. He also released several faculty members who had been arrested by Captain Partridge for telling the president of what was going on at West Point. So he began to establish order and discipline. A month later, Thayer looked out his window to the parade grounds and saw the cadets in formation under arms, and he was wondering what the commotion was. Turns out that Captain Partridge had returned with orders that presumably he had written to say that he was resuming command of West Point. The cadets, were very happy. They started cheering. This was the first test for Thayer. He realized that the smartest thing to do was to leave the post. Had he challenged Partridge, who had orders after all, this could have made things worse than they already were. And because the cadets were in support of Partridge, this could have resulted in a very dangerous situation and would have resulted in scandal. So Thayer, who was patient, stubborn, calm, went to New York, went directly to the Secretary of War, told him what had happened, and within 48 hours, Captain Alden Partridge was arrested. Sylvanus Thayer was put back in charge of West Point, and he would remain there until 1833. And during that time, he transformed West Point. He turned it into the premier academic facility that it is today. Focusing on mathematics, focusing on science, focusing on engineering, focusing on discipline, Spartan discipline. Again, he wasn't a favorite among the cadets, but later these cadets would come to appreciate and admire and respect General Thayer. It's interesting that these were the years that the Industrial Revolution was really beginning to take root in the United States. And these engineers would be very much needed, not just building America, but the officers who would man the armies. In fact, many of the soldiers who fought in the Civil War were graduates of West Point and benefited from the strict academic principles set down by Sylvanus Thayer. After 1833, he would retire from the academy, and he would resume constructing the coastal defenses of the United States, Fort Warren here in Boston, and many others. Brilliant individual. He remained in the Army, It wouldn't be until later in 1863, incredibly, after Abraham Lincoln, President Abraham Lincoln, in the midst of the Civil War, promoted him to brigadier general. Later, General Thayer retired and returned to the town of Braintree. In fact, he lived just a short distance from where we're sitting right now, and that's where he spent the remainder of his life. But what a life it was. He's remembered for a number of different things. He's often referred to as the father of West Point for transforming that academy. But he's also known as the father of modern engineering. After graduating from Dartmouth, he would make a number of bequests to Dartmouth, and he would help found the Dartmouth School of Engineering. He also helped pay for the Thayer Public Library, located right across the street from where we're sitting right now. He was all about education, but it was his transformation of West Point, perhaps more than anything else. It's interesting, we talk about technology. He's also referred to as the father of technology. He was voted into the Hall of Fame at New York University's Hall of Fame because of his contribution, and he's listed there as the father of technology. So think about that. This young man, born to modest means in Braintree, Massachusetts, would become the father of West Point, the premier military academy in the world. Father of engineering at a time when engineering was critically important to the development of the United States. This is when the United States really became the United States as it grew and expanded, moving west. General Thayer and his engineering school and the education that these individuals received at West Point, the Army Corps of Engineers, helped America move west. Father of technology. This was not an imposing physical man. He was probably about 5'8", 5'9", I'm not sure exactly. Very slim, not physically imposing, but he was always stood erect. He was firm. He commanded attention. He gave off an air of confidence. And I think that was very much needed at West Point in 1817. He spent many years in retirement here in Braintree, and he gave back. Not considered a boisterous or outgoing person, he was very quiet. He was very shy in many ways. Again, lived a very Spartan existence. If you saw him at West Point in the 18-teens or 1820s or 1830s, he would never be called Peacock. He did not wear colorful feathers or uniforms. Spartan in his dress as well. That was the air he gave off. And met with tremendous success. And he was very well respected here in Braintree. But as I said, he gave back to his community here as well. Lived to be almost 87 years old. Passed away in a house just located down the street. The people of Braintree honor his memory, and we're very, very honored to take care of his house. The Braintree Historical Society has been running and operating this house and preserving this house for many, many years, starting an award-winning school program that all Braintree school children, including myself many years ago, attended. But this is a gem, and it's a reminder of a very important figure in American history, General Sylvanus Thayer. For many years, the Sylvanus Thayer Award has been given out by the Association of Graduates at the Military Academy at West Point. A quote from one of the recipients of this award, the Sylvanus Thayer Award, General Gordon Sullivan, U.S. Army, retired. But he gave some interesting remarks, and he made some comments about Thayer himself. And I'm just going to read his comments. I think General Sullivan does a better job than I could in describing the contribution of General Thayer. Thayer's contributions to the excellence at West Point are too numerous to mention in detail, so permit me to summarize. He believed in setting performance standards and measuring cadet accomplishments of their lessons to exacting standards. He believed in individuals accepting personal responsibility for their work and actions. And he felt that clear, frank critiques of work as it was accomplished were important. He stressed the importance of values and strength of character. If you look carefully at today's Army, and not just here at West Point, you will see the enduring nature of Thayer's approach. That is why he is so revered at the West Point Academy. A statue of Sylvanus Thayer greets you as you enter the Academy. And his remains, which were initially interred here in Braintree, were later moved to West Point, where they probably rightfully belong. New York University established a Hall of Fame many years ago to celebrate great Americans. And Sylvanus Thayer is recognized with a spot in their Hall of Fame. And the reference to Sylvanus Thayer is his contribution to technology. He's referred to as the father of technology. So it's interesting, this gentleman who promoted education, who promoted the teaching of science and mathematics and engineering, is given that honor, the father of technology. And when you consider that at the time he was contributing to American life in the early years of the 1800s, that technology was front and center. He made it front and center. From the time he was educated at Dartmouth until he retired from the United States Army in 1863, it was about promoting education and science and technology. But it was that commitment to education, I think, that makes him stand out, and that's why the folks at New York University selected him as worthy of being included in the Hall of Fame. There have been a number of honors given on behalf of General Sylvanus Thayer. A postage stamp from several decades ago, a street in Manhattan. I believe a flower is named after General Thayer. Again, for most Americans, they don't know who Sylvanus Thayer was. The United States Post Office produced a number of stamps for great Americans. Number 23 in that series was General Sylvanus Thayer of Braintree, Massachusetts. In fact, the stamp was produced and dedicated on the 200th anniversary of his birth. He was born in 1785. This was 1985. And that ceremony took place here in Braintree. And a gentleman who was president and gave a talk at that ceremony is very active in the Historical Society today, Mr. Ronald Fraser, who knows a great deal about the birthplace and Sylvanus Thayer. He was present there as well. But a tremendous honor for Thayer and for Braintree, something we take great pride in.
I'm Ron Fraser, a past president and treasurer of the Historical Society. I wrote a feature article in the magazine Antiques on the Sylvanus Thayer birthplace in 1983. And I will be talking about the house itself, which is very interesting. To start off with, a house has to be historical, has to have two criteria. One, that somebody important was born there, and two, that it is architecturally important. The Sylvanus Thayer birthplace has both of those features, I'm very happy to say. The Thayer house originally was about a mile down the street. The Thayer farm was about 92 acres, and the house was built on the farm in 1720 by the great-grandfather of Sylvanus Thayer. In 1954, the Walworth Company bought the property and came to the society in 1958 and said, the options that we have for this house are to tear it down or for the Historical Society to take it over. The society started a fundraising program. Walworth gave the society $10,000, and it ended up costing $100,000 to do this job. Before they moved it, the architectural historian for the Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities came down and examined the place and said it is really worthwhile to have this job done. The fellow's name was Baker. Baker then became actually the superintendent of the work to be done on the Thayer house when the society actually took possession of it. Once the house was disassembled, the fascinating thing was they found everything was intact. Exactly, nothing had been touched. And as they disassembled it, they found the original wallboards behind 3 inches of plaster and wallboard. It was there, the windows, the door frames, everything was there Nothing had ever been removed. It became extremely important architecturally because of its originality back to that 1720 period. Once the house was put together, actually by 1960, Abbott Lowell Cummings came in and said that it was the most perfect restoration he had ever seen for a historic house. The house was recognized as an important Massachusetts historic site in 1972. The house is so important it was recognized on the National Register of Historic Places. In 1760, the house had an addition put onto that was called a lean-to, and it made it a salt box house. The house was originally 2 over 2. The house had a central chimney. The addition included a 7-foot wide by 5-foot high fireplace with a beehive oven. Everything in the house that is seen today, including the floorboards, the walls, everything is original. There are 3 rooms in the house which have original French wallpaper. That wallpaper was reproduced. Some of it's called the Sylvanus Thayer stripe. They were all originally reproduced for the house. The paints on the walls were scraped down and by paint scientific researchers found the original color of the paint, and that is what is seen on the walls today. If Sylvanus Thayer walked into this house today, he would recognize it as the house in which he was born. The entrance of the house today is as it was originally. As you walked in, to the right is the parlor of the house, and you'll find one of those fireplaces, and that's the room that has the Sylvanus Thayer stripe. As you go across, it was originally the kitchen of the house into that other front room of the house. And it was used as the kitchen until the addition was put on in 1760. The upstairs rooms, the front right room in the house was believed to be the room that Sylvanus Thayer was born in. And the other room is called now the hall chamber, because that was where the kitchen was, and is now called a hall, what some people today would call a dining room. In 1760, the lean-to was put on, and that huge fireplace and kitchen is at what you would find there today. In the kitchen, off to the right, was an extremely interesting feature which they did not know existed until the house was pulled apart. And they found a sunken buttery, which is extremely unusual. And there are only 5 known sunken butteries in houses in the entire country. The sunken buttery is down 2 steps and has a trough in it in which they would keep the butter. Supposedly there was a stream that came through that area of the house and was able to keep the butter cool enough to use. And as we know today, many people leave their butter right on the counter, so it is usable. But in that buttery today is found many artifacts. On the opposite side of the room is what is called a bourning room. But in that room today, since the house was moved, it has been used as a loom room. There were additions added after the beginning of the 19th century, which included the sheds. The sheds basically, when in 1960, were used to house 2 employees of the society who also gave tours and would take care of the house. Basically everything to do with the house, including the grounds and the maintenance inside. One of the interesting things that they found in the house was shoe lasts. They found bits of leather. They found cobbler's tools. They suppose that rats and mice brought these things around the house because they were found in the walls. But they found other cobbler items in the end of the building, which was believed to be an actual shoe shop. And today we have all the cobbler's implements and for making shoes in that shop. Originally, there was not a foundation for the house, but when it was moved, it was decided to make a very important addition to the house, which could hold the entire house. It would also be able to be used as a museum. And for many years, it was actually used as a museum and will someday again be used as a museum. The Historical Society was formed in 1930 and basically just was a club that got together once in a while. It had no artifacts, although it did obtain artifacts over the years and ended up putting them in the actual Thayer Library, which turned out to be a great asset because the original Thayer Library was changed to the Braintree Water Department. When the Water Department took it over, the library was left with one room for the Historical Society, and it was maintained in its original condition. Everything else was thrown out, which is sad. Well, from 1930 until 1958, the Society had no real objectives other than to collect and talk about history, and wrote some very interesting articles about history. Since the house was opened, it was furnished with some of the best period antiques that could be obtained. It was opened on a regular schedule for tours and continues to be opened on a regular schedule for tours. The Historical Society still maintains the house and as well as several other properties. The Historical Society's website gives information on tours, special events, and other information that I'm sure people will be most interested in seeing. Gilbert and Mary Bean were responsible for the moving of the Thayer House in 1958 to 1960. After that, Gilbert Bean thought it would be most appropriate to have a barn connected with the Thayer House. He started collecting barn boards, designs for barns, and so forth, and died before he could actually have it built. His wife, Mary, gave us $50,000 towards the construction of it if the society could match that $50,000. When I was president in 1972, we actually started working on the plans for that. And when I finished my term in office in 1974, I presided over the dedication of that barn. It was authentically built to the precise specifications of a barn of the period, and much of the wood actually came from wood from that period. In 1995, there was an addition built to the barn, which was a climate-controlled archives as well as library. That became the headquarters for the Braintree Historical Society. It is open to the public on a regular basis. And again, it's good to check the website to make sure when those dates are.
Hello, I'm Mary Fraser. I'm past president of Braintree Historical Society, and I'm the present curator. A curator takes care of objects, make sure they're clean, make sure they're intact, make sure they are fit to be seen by the public. Here at Braintree Historical Society, we have almost 5,000 different artifacts. In this particular house, their house, we had a committee in 1960, and the leader was a Constance Leggett. Connie was an antiquarian herself and a collector. So she basically oversaw what went in the house. It was decided that it would be an American farmhouse, probably between 1780 and 1800. It would be when Thayer was living and his family was here and active in the community. So they started collecting. They had a shop first, and they asked people in town to donate items. If it was within the purview of the collection for the house, they kept them. Other than that, they sold them, took the money, and bought other artifacts that they needed. As you entered the house, in the parlor, which was the most important room of a house at that period, there are many artifacts, especially three I want to point out, that actually belong to the Thayer family. We do not have a lot of artifacts that came from Thayer's family. The first one is a banister-backed chair, which belonged to his mother. It was made between 1740 and 1770, as far as we can tell. It's a lovely chair, and it is in very good condition. In the corner cupboard, we have a bowl which belonged to Thayer. It was a Chinese export porcelain bowl, one of the first ones that carried our American eagle on it. And we actually have that on loan from the Dietrich brothers. It is very important because it was Thayer's and it's of the period. Below the Thayer bowl, in that corner cupboard, is another bowl on the bottom shelf which belonged to Thayer's mother, Dorcas. It has been repaired, but it is in very good shape now, and we keep it in the cupboard because it's so precious to us. One item that is not within the period up to 1800 is the melodeon in the corner. That particular melodeon belonged to Thayer. He had it to instruct his soldiers the social graces when at West Point. West Point has redone things, so they offered it to Braintree Historical in 1995 when I was president. So because it's there, we keep it in the house. Also in the parlor room, there is a Mulliken clock, tall case clock. It is unusual in that the finials, there are three of them, which were added later, have the face of Charles Fox, who was a member of the English Parliament who favored the American cause and spoke in Parliament for us. I think in that room there are a lot of period pieces that a family would have had, and that was their front room, their special room. So we have a porringer table, and we have saucers and tea cups. They call them tea bowls because there were no handles at that time. When we go into the hall, which is on the left when you come in the front door, that was the original kitchen. So the fireplace in that particular room is a little larger than the other four fireplaces which were original to the house. In that corner of that room there is what we call, nowadays they call it a Murphy bed. It was a bed which folded up. It has a corn husk mattress and it has hangings. The women in the society reproduced the hangings. Most of the curtains and the bed hangings in Thayer House, I think you can see one behind me, are reproduced by the women in that particular committee. They were based on patterns of the day. They're usually made, most of them are made of linen. Our curtains are made of linsey woolsey, which we made on our loom, linen and wool blend. But the Murphy bed was in that particular room because that was the center of the house, the hive of the house, where most work got done. The reason that was there is if somebody was sick or mother gave birth about every 2 years, she could still direct the family or take care of the ill person in that particular room. We also have a lovely corner cupboard in that room, and it has the pewter collection, which they would use for their daily plates. Mostly they had either wooden trenchers or pewter plates. We have a very large collection of pewter. Then we go into the addition, the lean-to, which is now the main kitchen of the house. We called it, I think they called it originally the keeping room. I'm not sure exactly why. We have a lot of artifacts in that room. We have the tables, we have china, we have candle dipping, we have spinning wheels. Oh, the buttery. So off the keeping room, we have a buttery. In the buttery, we have a lot of cheese-making equipment, churns. We have a meat press, and we have a lot of glass globes, which were unusual in the day, so they were protected with straw. And we have a lot of homemade items like rices, peelers. In the main kitchen, we have that enormous fireplace, which you heard about. When the wall was taken down in front of that fireplace, we found that even the hanging pots, one of the hanging pots, was still there. They just apparently just pushed the arm from over the fireplace and left the pot there. We have reflecting ovens down there. We also have a Dutch oven, which we used in a school program. A Dutch oven is basically a big pot on legs with an iron cover, which has a domed cover with a little lip. You would put your bread, your stew, whatever you want to bake in the pot, put coals underneath and put coals on top. And that would bake your bread in there, your stew, keep anything warm. We have what they call spiders. A spider was an iron frying pan, usually with a long handle, and at least 4 feet, sometimes more. That's why you get the spider from it. There is also a baking oven, which we have used in the past. We have mullers. When you were making a hot drink, you would put your iron part of the mulling iron into the fire, heat it up, and then you could stir your cider or whatever and make it warm, give it some warmth. There are also trenchers down there. Usually they are made of wood. We have a wooden cutting bowl. It looks more like a trough. And we also have the rounded metal choppers down there. We also string, as they would have done in the 1700s, fresh fruits and vegetables and hung them over near the fireplace to dry, because in the wintertime we would reconstitute those and we would use them in our stews and our soups. Next to the kitchen was the what they call the birthing room. We now have a loom in it. Our loom is only 200 years old. We do have an older loom, which would be in the house, but it is not functioning. And we wanted a functional loom. It is only a 2-harness loom. It is very, very basic loom, but that's the kind of loom they would have used in those days. We also have a collection of quilts and blankets of the period, which we keep in our archives. When we come upstairs, one of the unique features of this particular house is the hall chamber, it is called. It is above the hall and is the room we're sitting in now, and it is technically a bedroom. But Father would have conducted his business here, so that's why we have a table. It was quiet up here. There was no heat from the downstairs, the cooking, the children were downstairs, so he had some peace and some quiet up here to conduct his business. And he had a table because usually they would serve a meal. So our table has pewter candlesticks, it has pewter plates and ivory and not really good steel, but it is a type of steel, knives, and then mostly pewter spoons, because that's what people had in those days. In this particular room, we also have a Connecticut-made chest of drawers. It has bun feet, and it was made in Connecticut about 1750. On top of that particular chest is a lap desk. The lap desk is made of walnut. It has lost its little bun feet. It was used as a traveling desk, and it was used by Elijah Hall when he traveled on the Alliance with John Paul Jones in about the 1760s. And above that is a stumpwork mirror. That is a very early stumpwork mirror. It is from 1660, and it is in fairly bad condition, but being stumpwork and that old, it's not in bad condition. It depicts Charles II and his wife, Catherine de Bronza. We also have in this room a little chandelier. The little chandelier is probably homemade. It too is about 1720, 1740, and you would have put the candles that you dipped in them. We do not have the candles in them right now. It is just basically stuck in the ceiling, and that's what they would have had in a house like this. When I referenced Connie Leggett, Connie died about 1978, and she had given us a lot of things for the house. Well, when she died, she left us most of her collection. So the house now is not a simple New England farmhouse. It's more upgraded farmhouse. We have some pieces that, especially in the hall downstairs, there is what they call a press cupboard. The press cupboard was made in Newbury, Mass. About 1683. It is made of very exotic woods. It has ebony in it, and it has other exotic woods, and it would be a very, very expensive item. There are only 3 known left in the country. One is in the Museum of Fine Arts, and we have one, and I think there is one at Winterthur. So that would be very unusual. Connie also left us so many things, over 200 pieces of pewter. On top of that press cupboard, there are 2 very important pieces of pewter. One is a European-made soup tureen, which is extremely large when you're talking about pewter, and behind it is a large trencher. Connie left us about 200 other pieces of pewter, which you will see through the house. A lot of the pewter on the tables, and then we have some on cupboards were given to us by Connie. So much that we dedicated the hall, we now call it the Constance Legger Room. We have other items, archives, which we try to keep in a climate-controlled area in our new barn, and then we added library archives. In the basement of the archives, it is climate-controlled. We have about 100 shelving units or file cabinets where all our artifacts are kept. Items there that we rotate for our different exhibits that we have. We have all kinds of exhibits depending upon what is happening in the town, what is happening in the country, and what anniversaries we are celebrating. We welcome the public here at Thayer House and also on our barn library at 31 Tenney Road. All the exhibits that you see are going to change, so if you check our website, you'll see right now we have an exhibit on General Thayer. It's over in the barn because this is the 150th anniversary of our town library, which he gave us and which he endowed. We have more artifacts which belong to Thayer over there. Anything to do with Thayer. Over there we have a cadet who graduated from West Point just before the Vietnam War. He served in the Vietnam War and he was killed there. That is his West Point uniform, which we have. And we have other artifacts that you're more than welcome to see. Our library is open again. Look at our website. You can do research there. You can research Braintree, Braintree people, Braintree events, and we have many photographs up and around the library and the barn. We welcome everybody to come and visit us and take a peek at history.
Hello, I'm Gail Burns, the present director of the Thayer House School Program as it is today, and one of the 3 former directors of the Gilbert L. Bean, Mary Cunningham Bean Sylvanus Thayer School Program, that it was here for 50 years in this very house from 1961 to 2011. And I'm here to talk about that program with you today. Gilbert and Mary Bean were 2 Braintree residents, a husband and wife team, full of insight and generosity. Their traits were evident in all they were involved in, especially with the Braintree Historical Society. They firmly believe that the birthplace, built in 1720 by General Sylvanus Thayer's great-great-grandfather Nathaniel, should be used for the benefit of Braintree and its people. They envisioned a school program that would inspire and instill civic pride in the youth of our town, and they believed that knowledge about our history and those individuals who contributed to our great heritage would encourage our future adults to become active and responsible citizens to our town and our nation. Gilbert Bean began initiating communications with Ralph Proctor, then the superintendent of the Braintree Public Schools, and later with participants from the principals to teachers to PTOs, school committees, the Thayer Public Library, and of course the Braintree Historical Society. With all this input of ideas, beliefs, and energy, the Gilbert L. Bean, Mary Cunningham Bean, Sylvanus Thayer School Program was created. Two primary stipulations for the program from its inception were, number one, that the program be based on the 5th grade curriculum of studies of the 1700s colonial history period, and would also be age appropriate for safety and understanding of the program's content. Number two, that the program be a hands-on learning experience wherever possible. The program was based on the September to June calendar school year, and every Monday, one 5th grade class at a time for each of the then 10 existing public elementary schools, and the 5th grade class from St. Francis of Assisi Parochial School visited by bus to the Thayer House to begin their Step Back in Time experience for the period of 1785, when Sylvanus was a little boy growing up in this house in Braintree. So on a Monday morning in the fall of 1961, the Gilbert L. Bean and Mary Cunningham Bean Sylvanus Thayer School Program opened its doors. The first 5th grade class was greeted at the cobbler's shop door by a group of knowledgeable and dedicated costumed volunteers, led by its first director, Mary Cunningham Bean. They were helped to put on aprons representative of what the blacksmiths would have worn in those days, brown leather aprons for the boys, and for the girls, white pinafores that the ladies would have worn as they went about their chores in the keeping room. On the aprons were Thayer names: brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, nephews, nieces. The children would be identified and called by these names during their time spent at Thayer House. Also stressed was how important it was that all family members help with the chores every day, as Sylvanus, along with his brothers and sisters, did. At the spinning wheel, they learned how flax is made into thread and wool into yarn for clothing, rugs, curtains, and bed linens. They would card the sheep's wool and prepare rolags to be spun into yarn at the spinning wheel. They would then sit at a 4-harness loom and take turns at throwing the shuttle, working the pedals, and pulling the beam to add a row of thread to the weave of the material. They would learn that it takes 10 cups of bayberries gathered from the woods to make enough wax for 1 candle, and they'd carefully dip wicks tied to sticks into hot melting bayberry wax, building each candle to make it fatter and fatter as the wax dried. They'd end up taking home with them one of these candles. In the buttery, they churn the risen cream from the milk collected from the cows in the barn and see it turn into butter that they would later enjoy on a piece of the bread that they had been waiting for to bake in the bake kettle all morning. The long-term success of the program is credited to the many dedicated and conscientious men and women volunteers who came every single Monday over so many years and who freely gave their time, talents, and expertise to all the children in Braintree. For 50 years, the school program was directed by 3 women. Although I had never personally met Mary Cunningham Bean, by all accounts that I have read and heard about firsthand from our second director and my mentor, Nancy Nicosia, she was all the special person and mentor to Nancy, what Nancy was to me, and both deserving of every allocate given to them. I often wish that they and all the others who gave so much of themselves to make this program such a success over the years could hear all the wonderful comments and memories shared about the program. From the mums and dads who had children of their own, who all came through the program, some as chaperones with their children, former students who are now teachers with students of their own who remember their own experience and bring their classes through to revisit. Some are now members of our town government, like our first mayor of Braintree, Joe Sullivan. We are extremely proud of those 50 years. And you know, I'm sure General Sylvanus would be too.